A Wolf Soulmate Romance written by Clara Nightshade. Prologue. Aveline Hart thought unrequited love was the worst pain in the world. She was wrong. Because worse than not being loved back is being claimed by a love that won't let you go. After one too many matchmaking disasters, Aveline's resigned herself to solitude, chocolate, and cozy evenings far from the dating world. Until a blind date at a meat-themed bistro introduces her to Caelum Wolfe, a man too kind, too intense, and too good to be true. Because he is. Caelum isn't human. He's a werewolf alpha bound by ancient instincts and even older scars. And when Aveline steps into his world, she doesn't just fall in love, she falls into the crossfire of centuries-old feuds, political unrest, and a bond that awakens something primal in both of them. But she's not the only one watching him. Chapter 1. The blind date at the meat market. Aveline Hart stared at the raw, marbled flank steak on her plate like it had just insulted her family. It gleamed under the restaurant's moody lighting, all red and sinewy, a glistening brick of flesh. Across the table, her date's eyes shimmered, and not in the candlelight kind of way. "So," she said, stabbing at the lettuce garnish instead, "this place is lively." The man across from her, Caelum Wolfe, according to the matchmaking profile her mother had all but threatened her into setting up, smiled softly. He had one of those faces angular in a movie villain way, but often by eyes that looked like dusk. His suit was too well fitted for a normal accountant, which was his listed profession, and no one should look that comfortable under a mounted boar's head. "I find the menu authentic," Caelum replied, voice low and smooth. "They honor the animal, which I appreciate." "Oh good," Aveline muttered. "I was worried you were going to say, because it tastes like fear." That earned her a surprised laugh, deep, warm, and just a little rough. "I don't usually eat fear, just protein." She sipped her water, and tried not to laugh herself. Caelum didn't seem dangerous. Hard, maybe. Overly intense, definitely. But not dangerous. If anything, he was careful. Every motion was smooth, controlled. Like he was pretending to be less powerful than he was. It was weirdly comforting. Also weirdly hot. "Your mother tells me you bake," he said. Aveline narrowed her eyes. "Did she also tell you about the croissant fire? I assumed that was a metaphor." "Nope. Real fire. Real smoke. The toaster oven still smells like regret." His lips twitched. "Perhaps you need a fireproof sous chef. Are you offering? I'm excellent at kneading." "Oh," he was smooth. Aveline flushed and pretended to look at the menu, even though she'd already decided she'd be ordering the least meaty thing here, which was apparently the decorative parsley. She glanced up. Caelum was watching her, but not in a creepy way, in an old soul way, like he was trying to memorize her. The flicker of discomfort it should have sparked was overridden by a sudden need to lean closer. "So Caelum," she said, clearing her throat, "tell me something not in your profile, something real." For a moment, something flickered across his face, not quite fear, not quite sadness. Then he smiled again. Smaller, softer. "I have a family that depends on me," he said, "and I want peace. Not silence, not solitude, peace." That wasn't what she expected. No bragging about job titles or gym routines, just a quiet truth. "I like peace too," she murmured, "especially the chocolate kind." He chuckled. "I haven't tried that." "You haven't? Oh, we're fixing that. If this date survives the meat parade, you're getting a bag of peace bites. Life-changing." "Then I'll have to survive," he said, eyes gleaming again, not with humor this time, but something hungrier. The air shifted, not threatening, but charged, primal, and then a sharp whistle sounded from somewhere behind them. Some kid with a dog, probably, and Caelum flinched, not visibly but inwardly, like every hair on his body stood up at once. His jaw clenched, his pupils narrowed. "You okay?" Aveline asked, trying to pretend she hadn't noticed. He nodded once. "Just sensitive hearing." "Right, sure, that's what that was." But still, she didn't move away. If anything, she found herself leaning in again, drawn to him like gravity. Maybe she was just tired of running away. Aveline had no business saying yes to dessert, but there she was, half laughing, half horrified, as Caelum speared a chunk of what the menu called raw chocolate blood pudding and offered it across the table, with all the sincerity of a Jane Austen suitor. "Absolutely not," she whispered. "That looks like sin in paste form." "It's quite good," he said. "Rich, sharp, a little wild." "So you then?" His smile deepened. "Try it and find out." She stared him down. It didn't work. He had the advantage of cheekbones and eyes that seemed to know too much. With a muttered prayer to her stomach lining, Aveline took the bite. It was good, alarmingly good, earthy and bitter, with a sweetness that bloomed slowly. Well, she said, blinking, either I've been converted to carnivorous chocolate, or I'm in trouble. I vote both, he murmured, setting his spoon down. Though I hope I'm the trouble, not the dessert. She choked on a laugh. Okay, Casanova. Casanova was a coward compared to me. Bold claim. Test me. It wasn't flirtation in the normal sense. Caelum didn't layer a posture. He didn't even lean forward like most men trying to impress her. He just existed with the kind of focused stillness that said, I know what I want. And right now, it's you. Aveline couldn't decide whether to swoon or run, so she did neither. She changed the subject. You said your family depends on you? Siblings. In a way, he said, gaze slipping distant. Not by blood, but they are mine to protect. His tone wasn't casual, it had weight, like he was speaking of something sacred. You're the oldest, the alpha. She tilted her head. Like a figure of speech? Caelum blinked, then chuckled lowly. Let's say, it's complicated. Your job must be exhausting, she teased, deflecting the odd shiver his words sent through her. You'd be surprised. It has its moments, and its monsters, metaphorical or literal. His smile was all teeth. Depends on the night. Something about that sent goosens racing across her arms. She wasn't sure if it was fear or fascination. He noticed, of course. The man noticed everything. Would you like to go for a walk? He asked gently. There's a park nearby. Let's meet. More moonlight. Moonlight. Great. Romantic and mildly ominous. Sure, she said, standing. Let's see how brave I really am. The air outside was crisp and sweet, the kind that smelled like damp leaves and far off rain. The park was dimly lit, mostly deserted, which should have been creepy but wasn't. Not with Caelum walking beside her, quiet but solid, reassuring. Tell me something about you, he said after a few moments. Something real. Aveline wrinkled her nose. That's cheating. I asked first. Then consider this round two. She thought for a moment. Okay, when I was 8, I adopted a stray cat and named him Professor Noodles. He was orange mean, and hated everyone but me. He used to leave dead lizards in my shoes as offerings. Caelum's chuckle was genuine. A hunter. An emotional menace, she corrected. But he was my menace. And now I bake. Burn things, mostly. Live alone. Dodge my mom's matchmaking attempts like a ninja. She stopped. What? I want more, she said softly. Adventure. Meaning. Love that doesn't feel like a bargain or a checklist. He was quiet for a moment. Then, that's not a small wish. I've never been very good at small. His hand brushed hers not accidentally. He waited. She didn't pull away. I think you'd be extraordinary in any world, Caelum said, voice a soft growl. You're weird, she whispered. I know. And this feels fast. It does. She turned to him, caught by the strange honesty in his eyes. Are you going to kiss me? Not tonight. Why not? Because if I start, I might not stop. That should have sounded arrogant. It didn't. It sounded dangerous. Like truth. Aveline swallowed, heart pounding. Good night, Caelum. He stepped back, bowed and whispered, until next time. Aveline Hart. She watched him walk away, shadows curling around him like fog. And only when he vanished around the park bend did she let out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Mom, she muttered to herself. What the hell kind of dating app did you sign me up for? Chapter 2: A Date with Destiny and a Dog. It was nearly midnight when Aveline finally admitted to things to herself. One, she was thinking about Caelum Wolfe far too much for someone who'd only had one official date. Two, she was being followed. The sound had started half a block from her apartment, soft, deliberate steps matching her own. Not car tires, not the wind. A second pair of shoes, just out of sync enough to make her gut twist. She gripped her tote bag tighter, keys threaded between her fingers like makeshift claws. Thank the heavens she'd worn boots instead of heels. Okay, she muttered. This is fine. You're just paranoid. Or someone's jogging behind you in a trench coat. At night, in silence. Totally normal. She turned the corner and yep. Still there. All right, creeper, she snapped, spinning on her heel. I've watched every episode of Criminal Minds. I will go full Hotch Enier on you. Nothing. No one. Just the sound of distant traffic and a flickering street lamp. Aveline's heart jackhammered. She scanned the sidewalk. Bushes. Alleyways. Trees. Her breath misted in the cold air, visible proof of her rising panic. Then, suddenly, growling. Low, close. Not canine. Exactly. Too deep. Too wrong. The street lamp flickered again. She caught a flash of something movement between shadows, long limbs, teeth. Okay, no thank you, she whispered, backing away. The thing lunged, and then, a blur of motion, something faster, sleeker, graceful slammed into the creature mid-leap. Claws scraped pavement. Aveline hit the ground, breath knocked from her lungs, and rolled just in time to see a second figure pin the attacker to the concrete. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't a wolf. It was a cat, or rather something cat-like, humanoid in shape but fluid in motion, midnight black with golden eyes that glowed like twin moons. It moved like silk sharpened into a blade. One swipe, one growl. The creature fled into the darkness. The cat thing stood, turned, and looked straight at her, and then with a shimmer of light like it rising off stone it changed. The figure reformed, limbs pulling inward, bones rearranging until, Rowan? Aveline gasped. Her boss, aloof, painfully attractive, perpetually condescending Rowan Morcant stood above her in a tailored coat and cravat like some brooding Victorian librarian. His face was unreadable, his expression mildly annoyed as always. You Yuri, what the hell? Alive, he said dryly. You're welcome. She scrambled to her feet, cheeks flushed. You were a cat. A very large cat. Velari, he corrected. I what? What even is that? He dusted imaginary lint off his sleeves. A dying breed, technically. Some of us blend better than others. You saved me. That was accidental. She blinked. What? I was following the other creature, he said calmly. You were incidental. Oh, well thanks, your majesty. Rowan arched an eyebrow. Sarcasm. How quaint. Okay, back up, she snapped, planting her hands on her hips. Why were you even out here? And why are you suddenly an extra in cats? He flinched. Never compare me to that musical again. You are shapeshifts. Velari, he repeated. There's a difference. Caelum knew, didn't he? She whispered, realization hitting her like ice water. He knew there was something after me. Rowan's jaw tightened. I don't know what he is, she said, voice trembling, but I'm starting to think this whole meet date thing wasn't fate. It was a setup. Rowan didn't answer, which said more than he probably meant it to. Go home, Aveline, he finally said, voice quieter. You don't want to know the rest. But she did, and something told her that knowing was the only way to stay alive. Aveline didn't go home. She went to the only place she could think of. Caelum's building was one of those quiet brick constructs tucked behind a private garden and tall iron fence. The gate was unlocked, of course. It was in the hallway, smelled like cedar and faintly of ash. By the time she knocked on his door, she was half hoping he wouldn't answer. The other half just needed answers. The door opened before she knocked a second time. Caelum stood there, barefoot, shirt unbuttoned, hair slightly damp like he'd just come from a shower. His eyes widened when he saw her, something unreadable flashing behind them. Aveline, he said, voice a low rumble. Is everything? You knew? She blurted. You knew something was out there. You knew it would come after me. He inhaled sharply. Come inside. She hesitated. Please. Something in the way he said it, not commanding, not pleading, but protective, made her step inside. The apartment was warm, dimly lit, with stone floors and windows lined with potted herbs and thick curtains. It smelled like pine, leather, and spice. There were no family photos, but a sword hung above the fireplace. Not decorative. I was followed, she said, arms crossed, trying to keep her voice from shaking. Something attacked me, and Rowan, my boss, turned into a freaking panther and saved me. Caelum's mouth tightened. Velari, he murmured. You know him? I know of him. The Velari don't often leave their courts, but Morcant is unusual. He knew you too. Said he didn't trust you. Caelum closed the door, locked it, slowly. Of course he doesn't, he said. Our kinds don't exactly share wine and gossip. Aveline's gaze sharpened. What kind are you? Caelum met her eyes. The quiet mask he wore, the courteous calm. The gentle gaze slipped for just a second, enough for her to see something ancient underneath. I'm Moonstrain, he said. Werewolf, if you prefer the stories. Her breath caught. You're joking. I never joke about this. But you're not some drooling monster with chains and a moon fetish. His lips quirked. Not usually. She tried to laugh. It came out as a whimper. This is real. You're real. The stories, the legends, they're not just myths, are they? He shook his head. And Rowan, Velari are cat-born, magic-bound, controlled. They don't lose themselves. We do. We? He turned away, shoulders tense. The Moonstrain. We have rules, rituals, but our instincts run deep. During the full moon, We shift unless we're trained or suppressed. Suppressed? There are potions, practices, most of us manage. But the rage, the hunger, his voice faltered. Not everyone survives it. And the thing that came after me, not one of ours, he said, eyes stormy, but something knew you were with me. Something wanted to send a message. Why? He stepped closer. Because I care about you. Because I brought you into my world. You barely know me. I knew enough the moment I met you. Her breath hitched. He reached for her and hesitated, then let it fall. I should have told you earlier, he said, but I didn't want to scare you, or lose this. This? You, us. Whatever we could be. She swallowed. I should run, shouldn't I? You could. I wouldn't stop you. But you want me to stay. I want you safe. Aveline exhaled slowly, the tension in her chest finally easing. Well, if we're being honest, I already adopted a cat who used to leave me dead things. Caelum blinked. I think I can handle one more furry's secret. For a moment something soft passed between them, not quite relief, not quite laughter, something warmer. Then a loud thud interrupted it, followed by a low, irritated growl just outside the window. Aveline tensed. What was that? Caelum stalked to the window, sniffed the air, then sighed and opened it. And in jumped a massive, shaggy grey dog. Or no, not a dog. Not quite. It looked at Aveline, eyes glowing amber, sat down, sneezed, then wagged its tail with slow, reluctant affection. Thorn, Caelum said tiredly. The wolf dog growled. Caelum growled back. Aveline blinked. You two are talking. Debating, Caelum muttered. He thinks I'm being reckless. The dog Thorn huffed and nosed her leg gently. I'm sorry, is this my therapy wolf now? She asked weakly. He appointed himself. Perfect. Caelum smiled, a real one, this time, not the polished one from the meat market, not the courteous mask, something raw, sincere. You're handling this remarkably well, he said. I'm either very brave, she replied, or very sleep-deprived. He stepped close, brushing a strand of hair from her face. If you stay, I'll tell you everything. She looked into his eyes, saw the man and the beast behind them, both waiting, both afraid, and she nodded. Okay, but only if you promise not to eat my shoes. Thorn snorted. Chapter 3. Fangs, Fur, and Feelings. Aveline Hart had seen a lot in the last week. A dog that wasn't a dog. A boss that was apparently royalty. A date who turned out to be a werewolf. And now, a pot of boiling fennel root tea, an angry moon strain aid with murder eyes, and the sudden realization that she might be the human equivalent of a chew toy in a supernatural tug-of-war. Drink it while it's hot, Maelis said sharply, setting the mug down with the grace of a porcelainous assan. Her silver hair was tied back in a braid too neat to be real, and her black outfit screamed executive chic with hidden knives. Aveline eyed the tea. Will it kill me? Only if you insult it again. Right. So no complaints about it smelling like wet licorice. Maelis didn't blink. She just stood there like a beautiful gargoyle watching her drink. Aveline took a careful sip. It burned a little. Sharp. Bitter. Surprisingly. Calming? Caelum's not here, she asked, setting the mug down. No, Maelis's tone suggested she preferred it that way. He's preparing. For what? The moon. Of that. The full moon was tomorrow night. Apparently, Caelum needed space and silence to prepare for it. Meditation, fasting, cold showers. She wasn't sure. The moon strain's customs were part religious ritual, part primal conditioning. He'd said something about making sure the wolf listened. Aveline had nodded, pretending that made sense. Now she was wondering if she should be worried. You don't trust me, she said softly, watching Maelis from the rim of her mug. The other woman's eyes narrowed. I don't trust anyone with him. Least of all someone who can't smell danger. That's not entirely fair. I felt it, very acutely, and I screamed appropriately. That thing could have torn your throat out. And yet, here I am, throat intact, because someone else saved you. Maelis snapped. Not Caelum. Not you. Someone else. And next time, that may not be enough. The room fell quiet. Then Aveline said, You're in love with him. Maelis flinched. Aveline tilted her head. Not the answer you wanted from me, huh? Maelis's jaw tightened. What I feel is irrelevant. Not to me. You're risking a lot to be here. Feeding me tea. Warning me. Making fun of my scent-based survival skills. That's not just duty. You think too highly of yourself. Maybe, Aveline said, setting her mug down. But I think you loved him before he learned to love gently. Maelis's eyes went sharp. Then, softer than Aveline expected, he was never gentle. Maybe not with you. Silence stretched. tense, fragile. Then the front door opened. Mail straightened so fast it was practically a military maneuver. Alpha, Caelum stepped inside, his coat dusted with frost, his dark hair tousled by wind. He looked like a thunderstorm in a man's body, tension in every line, eyes glowing faintly in the half-light. "Everything all right?" he asked, glancing between them. "Yes," Aveline said. "No," Mail muttered. Caelum sighed. "Can we not?" Aveline rose and crossed the room. "You look tired." "I am." He smiled slightly. "But I'm better now." She touched his hand. Warm, steady, and yet, something in him buzzed like static beneath skin. "Tomorrow's going to be hard, isn't it?" she asked. He didn't answer, just nodded. Mail cleared her throat. "I'll take my leave." "Thank you," Caelum said quietly. She paused at the door. Her gaze met Aveline's, sharp, unreadable. Then she was gone. When they were alone, Caelum leaned into her touch, resting his forehead briefly against hers. "I wanted to tell you everything that first night," he murmured, "but I didn't want to see fear in your eyes." "I was scared," she admitted. "I know. But I'm still here." "I know," he said again, this time like a prayer. The full moon rose like a pale wound in the sky, wide and watchful. Aveline stood in Caelum's backyard, which, in true werewolf fashion, was more forest than yard, wrapped in a blanket she'd stolen from his couch. Thorn sat beside her, all fur and disapproval, occasionally nudging her leg like an anxious chaperone. "Do I want to see this?" she asked him quietly. Thorn sneezed, then flopped onto his side, a shrug, if she ever saw one. Inside the tree line, Caelum moved with slow purpose, his shirt already discarded, the faint shimmer of transformation crawling along his arms like silver lightning beneath skin. Muscles rippled, breath quickened. He'd explained what would happen. He needed to shift. Denying it only made the change violent. So he would embrace it, let the wolf surface in a controlled space, in a familiar environment. And Aveline was invited to stay, to watch, if she wanted. She hadn't expected him to ask. She hadn't expected to say yes. But here she was in borrowed woolen mismatched socks, witnessing the man she was starting to fall for become something else entirely. And it was beautiful. The transformation wasn't sudden, like in movies. It was gradual, ritualistic. His bones didn't crack so much as reshape, his form shifting into something taller, broader, his skin darkening with fur, his face lengthening until his eyes glowed gold beneath a wolfen brow. But those eyes, those were still his, still Caelum. When the shift finished, he didn't growl or snarl. He simply stood in the moonlight, chest rising and falling, fur ruffling in the wind. Aveline stepped forward slowly, cautious but not afraid. Thorn didn't stop her. Caelum turned his head toward her, ears twitching. A low whine rumbled in his throat. He took a step forward. She lifted a hand. He froze. "It's me," she said softly. "I'm okay." Another step. Another. Then he was inches away, towering over her, part man, part wolf, entirely himself. His scent was wild and warm, earthy and electric, not frightening, familiar. Her fingers brushed against his chest fur. "Warm." He leaned into the touch. Aveline smiled through the tears she hadn't realized she'd been holding back. "Hi," she whispered. Caelum huffed, amused maybe, or grateful. She didn't know, but she felt it. Whatever it was, it pulsed between them like shared breath. And then, without warning, the woods howled. Not Caelum. Something else. Something farther. Caelum's body tensed instantly. His hackles rose. Behind her, Thorn stood, tail rigid. "What was that?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Caelum turned toward the sound, then looked at her. One look, fierce, protective, pleading. "Go inside," she guessed. He nodded once, sharp. "I'll be waiting." And she meant it. Because what terrified her more than monsters in the woods was the thought of walking away from him now. Chapter for Strays and Secrets. Aveline woke up to snoring. Not soft, rhythmic snoring. Loud, wet, judgmental snoring. She blinked at the ceiling of Caelum's guest room, where she'd stayed after the full moon. The bed was too soft. The blanket smelled like pine and lingering fur. And at the foot of the bed, sprawled like he owned the place, was a very large, very hairy creature. Thorn, still in his dog form, curled up like a guard wolf who'd appointed himself her personal sleep warden. At some point in the night, he'd climbed into bed like a grumbling guardian with no regard for personal space. "You drooled on the comforter," she mumbled, nudging him with her foot. He grunted and rolled over, poke covering his face like an embarrassed toddler. "Fine," she sighed, climbing out of bed and stretching. "But if you start sleeping on my side, we're getting bunk beds." Thorn's tail thumped. She padded barefoot into the kitchen, hoping for coffee. What she got instead was the sharp, lemony scent of pine cleaner, and a very awkward-looking Caelum wiping down the counters like a man with too much energy and too many thoughts. "Morning," he said without turning. "Hey," she said, rubbing her eyes. "You're very vertical for someone who wolfed out last night." He gave a half smile. "Comes with the territory. Shifting burns through adrenaline. I couldn't sleep. Adrenaline. Right. That explains the bleach smell and the 6 loads of laundry on the floor." Caelum looked sheepish. "I may have deep cleaned the whole house." Aveline opened a cabinet. It was organized, color-coded, alphabetized. "You alphabetized your spices." "I needed to feel in control," he muttered. She laughed softly, kindly. "You didn't lose control. Not once. You were incredible." He finally looked at her, and for a second, something unguarded flickered in his eyes. "You weren't scared?" "I was," she said, "but not of you." Before he could reply, the sound of something shifting behind them made Aveline turn. Thorn was stretching his limbs mid-yawn and shifting. Not from wolf to dog, like before, not into something furry or halfway human, but into a man. A very naked, very scarred, very grumpy man. Jesus wept. Aveline yelped, spinning around and smacking into the fridge. "You could have warned me." Thorn scratched his head. "Told you not to get attached." "I was attached to the dog, not the oh my god, you're naked." Caelum, utterly unfazed, tossed a towel across the kitchen. "Clothes, Thorn. Not my fault she keeps petting me," Thorn muttered, wrapping the towel around his hips. "You should have told her." "She was mourning her lack of croissants," Caelum said dryly. "It didn't feel like the right time." Aveline groaned and sank onto a stool. "I gave you cheese slices. I let you sleep on my couch." Thorn shrugged. "And I guarded you from 3 prowlers, a demon bird, and your ex-boyfriend's weird energy." "You're welcome." Caelum's eyebrows shot up. "She has an ex-boyfriend with weird energy?" "Yeah, that Elias guy who sent her a 6-page apology text in haiku form." "Sketchy." Aveline dropped her face into her hands. "I live in hell." "No," Caelum said softly. "You live with us. Now." And weirdly, terrifyingly, comfortingly that felt true. Later that day, Aveline returned to the city for work, with one mission in mind: act normal. Unfortunately, acting normal was much harder when you just learned that your dog was a naked ex-enforcer, your boyfriend sprouted fur on full moons, and your boss moonlit as feline nobility with a secret tendency to save your life. Aveline stepped into the Mort Cantac lobby with a fake smile and a venti-iced courage latte clutched like a weapon. "Morning, Miss Hart," chirped the receptionist. "Morning, Sarah," Aveline said. "If anyone needs me, I'll be in my office pretending the world makes sense." She made it to her desk without incident. No chapachetas, no rogue moon beasts, just spreadsheets and very human chaos. But of course peace never lasted. Rowan Moorkent appeared in herd away just past 10. Sharp suit, sharp jawline, sharper glare. "We need to talk," he said, not waiting for an invitation. Aveline sipped her drink. "If this is about the post-it mural of motivational cats I put on the printer, it was a team-building exercise." "Sit." She sat. He closed the door and turned toward her, pacing like a cat that had just scented something it didn't like. "You were attacked. You should have left. And yet here I am. Alive. And aware. You don't want to be aware." "Too late." Rowan stopped. His eyes, normally cool silver, flared faintly golden just for a second. "You're with him," he said, disgust curling in his voice. "You saved my life, Rowan," she said quietly. "I'm grateful. Truly. But don't turn this into a territorial dispute. He's dangerous." "So are you," she snapped. "Don't think I've forgotten how fast you moved, how feline you were. I didn't lose control." Neither did he. Rowan's fists clenched at his sides. "The moon strain aren't like us. Their instincts override judgment. Emotion clouds reason." "You mean love clouds reason?" she challenged. His jaw twitched. There it was, the truth he hadn't said out loud. Aveline stood. "I don't know what you think this is, but I'm not some prize. You don't get to scare me away from Caelum because you're jealous." He turned his back to her. "You're wrong. You could just say it." "Say what?" he demanded, spinning back. "That you care." Silence. Not denial, not confirmation, just silence. "I thought so," she said softly. Rowan exhaled through his nose. "The veiled kind don't take kindly to humans involved in our affairs. You're a weakness. Then I guess I'll just have to become a strength." His eyes flicked toward her. This time, there was something sad in them, something unspoken. "You're changing," he said. "Yeah," she replied, voice steady. I think I'm okay with that. He nodded once, curtained unreadable, then walked out, leaving only the faint scent of magic and regret behind him. Chapter 5: The Alpha's Plea. The rain came without warning, thick, relentless sheets drumming against Aveline's apartment windows like an army of impatient ghosts. She was on the couch, half buried under a quilt, with a baking show playing at half volume and a tray of unsuccessful cinnamon buns on her lap. They weren't undercooked, obviously. She was too distracted. Her phone hadn't buzzed in over a day. Caelum had disappeared since the full moon. No texts, no voice messages, not even thorn-shaped passive aggression scratching at her window. She tried to convince herself it was fine. He was probably busy, probably recovering, probably had a whole supernatural pack to worry about, but the silence itched. It curled beneath her ribs like a second heartbeat made of worry, and then someone knocked. Not just a polite tap, a knock that echoed through the room with urgency. 3 times, no pause. Aveline jumped, nearly flinging frosting across the throw pillows. She peeked through the peephole, and her breath caught. Caelum stood on the other side, soaked to the skin. Rain plastered his dark hair to his forehead, ran rivulets down his jaw, and clung to the fabric of his open coat. His eyes weren't glowing, but they were raw, wild, pleading. She opened the door without a word. "I'm sorry," he said, voice hoarse. "I shouldn't have stayed away." "You think? I thought I could keep you safe by staying back, that if I distanced myself, they'd stop coming for you. And how's that working out for you?" He winced. "I deserve that." "You deserve a lot of things, Wolf, but mostly a towel. You're dripping on my threshold." He stepped in. The scent of rain and pine followed him like a cloak. She closed the door behind him and wrapped a towel around his shoulders with a huff. "You idiot," she whispered. "I know. You didn't even text." "I couldn't." His hands trembled beneath the towel. "Aveline, I was losing myself." Her breath stilled. "After the shift, everything gets louder. Every instinct, every doubt. The more I care about you, the worse it gets. It's like the wolf doesn't want to let go of you, Caelum." He looked up, eyes wet with something that wasn't just rain. "I've killed before. I've protected what's mine. But this, it's different. I don't want to protect you out of fear. I want to protect you out of love." The word lingered, hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. She stared at him. "You love me?" "I think I did the moment you called my steak aggressively raw, and still offered me chocolate afterward." Despite herself, she laughed a shaky, startled sound. "I'm not safe," he said, voice barely audible, "but I would die before hurting you." She stepped forward. He tensed, and then slowly she reached out, cupped his face, and pressed her forehead to his. "You don't get to run from this," she whispered. "Not anymore. I don't want to." "Then stay." "I'm afraid." She smiled, tears catching at the corners of her eyes. "Me too. But if I'm going to get murdered by magical politics or rogue shapashetas, I'd rather it be while kissing someone worth the chaos." His breath hitched. "Aveline." She kissed him, soft, certain, rained ampaned lips and all, and somewhere beneath their feet, the earth seemed to shift. Something old, something bound, something that watched from beyond the veil took notice. They didn't speak for a while after the kiss. Caelum sat on Aveline's couch in clothes that steamed gently as they dried, towel still looped around his shoulders like some ceremonial mantle of penance. He looked more human than she'd ever seen him, eyes downcast, muscles loose, no edge in his posture, just weary. Aveline poured tea in mismatched mugs, her hands still trembling slightly, but not from fear. Something had shifted between them, something deep, anchoring. She handed him the mug. "It's chamomile, not fennel root." She wrinkled her nose. "Mailers tried to murder me with that stuff." He chuckled quietly. "She means well." "No, she means control. And daggers. She's protective of the clan." "Of me? Is she still in love with you?" The question surprised them both. Caelum blinked, looked up. "She's loyal," he said carefully. "What she feels beyond that, I can't speak for. But my heart isn't hers." Aveline stirred her tea. "You ever tell her that?" "Not in those words. I never needed to. Until now." They sat in silence, the soft clink of her spoon the only sound between them. Thorn was notably absent tonight, either to give them space, or to avoid witnessing feelings with actual consequences. Finally, Caelum spoke. "There's something else you should know. About the bond." Aveline's brows lifted. "The bond," he set his mug down. "When a moon-strain alpha opens himself to someone truly, there's a connection. Instinctuant, emotional. It's not magic, but it's close. Like a soulmate thing. Like a compass," he said. You begin to feel what the other feels. Fear, anger, joy, pain. Aveline's pulse stuttered. Wait, feel, like, physically? More like echoes, flashes. When the bond begins to root, it mirrors intensity. It's why I knew you were in danger the night of the attack. You felt that. I felt your fear like a knife in my ribs. That's when I knew I couldn't keep my distance. Aveline put her tea down, heart pounding. So this thing between us, it's not just chemistry or awkward meet cutess and trauma bonding. No, he said softly, it's real, and ancient, and terrifying. Well, great, she breathed, laughing weakly. Now I have to update my dating profile. Mildly cursed, emotionally bonded to a werewolf, looking for patience and an industrial strength to toy. Caelum's smile returned soft and crooked, like he couldn't quite believe she was still here. You really don't scare easily, he said. I do scare, but I'm not running. Even if the bond continues to grow, especially if it does. He exhaled, a sound full of relief and wonder. Aveline Hart, he murmured. You are braver than most of my kind. She nudged his knee with hers. Don't tell Thorn. His ego's already unbearable. Caelum laughed, and it wasn't a polite chuckle or one of those quiet, brooding exhales. It was a full laugh, warm and alive. She watched him, heart tightening. This wasn't just about love anymore. This was about choosing each other, despite everything. The supernatural politics, the danger, the fear, the bond. If they were going to survive what came next, they had to do it together. And Aveline, she was all in. Chapter 6. Tea with a wolf, wine with a cat. You invited my parents? Aveline asked, clutching the pie dish like a shield. Caelum stood at the doorway of his house, looking entirely too calm for someone about to host two very human, very skeptical individuals. I thought it was time, he said. They deserve to meet me, the real me. I love that for you, she said through gritted teeth. But they still think you're a civil engineer from Vermont. I can make that believable. You growl at traffic. I snarl at reckless drivers. There's a difference. She groaned and stepped inside just as a second car pulled into the driveway. Too late to fake an emergency, she muttered. Caelum touched her back lightly. You said if we were doing this, it would be with honesty. Yes, but I was picturing surprise. I'm dating a werewolf as a Christmas reveal. Maybe with cookies. The knock came. Too early, too firm. That was definitely her mom. Aveline opened the door. Nora and Elias Hart stood side by side, arms full of Tupperware and good intentions. Nora wore a blouse that sparkled when she moved. Elias wore his I'm trying sweater. Sweetheart, Nora exclaimed, pulling Aveline into a hug before her daughter could protest. You didn't tell us your boyfriend was a homeowner. That's marriage material. Hi, Mom. Please don't propose to him before I do. They stepped inside, and Nora's gaze landed on Caelum like a hawk spotting a stake. You must be Caelum, she said. Oh, you're tall, and broad, and polite, I hope. Very, Caelum said with a small bow. It's a pleasure to meet you both. Elias extended a hand. I don't know how you managed to catch our girl. She usually runs from nice men. Caelum smiled faintly. She's more courageous than you realize. Aveline bit her lip. Her parents liked him. This was going suspiciously well, and then the door opened again, without a knock. Mael strode in like a storm in heels. Dressed in sharp velvet and indifference, she barely glanced at anyone before saying, We're out of Wolfsbane. Also, your pet therapist cancelled again. Nora turned. Oh, another guest. Mael is, Aveline said quickly. She's Caelum's aide. Executive second, Mael is corrected. But yes, I handle emergencies. Nora lit up. Wonderful. We brought casserole. I don't eat starch. I brought wine. Elias offered helpfully. Mael is paused. You may stay. Aveline dragged Caelum into the kitchen by his sleeve. You said this would be low-key. I lied. You're lucky I love you. His smile was boyish. That was the idea. By the time dinner hit the table, Aveline had survived 3 subtle interrogations from her mother, 1 very unsubtle question about grandchildren from her father, and a minor growling standoff between Mael isn't a bread roll. Caelum, for his part, had been perfect. Too perfect. He carved the roast like he'd trained under Gordon Ramsay, answered Nora's pointed questions with gracious restraint, and only nearly growled once when Elias offhandedly mentioned Elias Jr., Aveline's ex. You really should have kept him, Elias said, sipping wine. That boy had a future in government. You'd have dental insurance by now. I have dental insurance, Aveline muttered. Do you? Dad, I just worry. He had that whole strong jaw thing going like a Kennedy with less scandal. Elias, Nora warned. She's happy. Look at her. All eyes turned to Aveline. She froze mid-sip of cider. I'm thriving, she said. Really. Emotionally radiant. Glowing from werewolf love. Caelum choked. Elias raised an eyebrow. Werewolf love. Silence. Caelum cleared his throat. It's a term of endearment. Inside joke. Right. Aveline said quickly. From this show we watch. It's called The Moon and Me. Maëlys rolled her eyes so hard it was audible, and then, a second knock. All heads turned. Caelum stood, frowning. I'm not expecting anyone. More guests? Nora asked brightly. Caelum opened the door, and Rowan Morcant stepped inside, wearing a suit sharp enough to slice air, holding a bottle of wine like a peace offering, and wearing an expression that said he regretted everything already. You invited him. Aveline hissed, pulling Caelum aside. I did not. Rowan smiled barely. I come bearing gifts. And surveillance updates. One of your veiled kind attractors is leaking information to the humans. Thought you'd like to know. Great, Aveline muttered. Just what this meatloaf needed. Espionage. Rowan stepped into the dining room like he owned it. You must be Aveline's parents. Rowan Morcant, her employer. Also a Velari noble, but that's probably irrelevant. Elias blinked. Velari? A cat. Caelum said under his breath. A prince, Rowan corrected. A menace, Aveline added. Nora gasped. Wait, you're Rowan? The one who sends her texts at 3 a.m. about database optimization. It's urgent at the time, and you're not dating her? Elias asked. I wouldn't say that, Rowan said smoothly. Aveline groaned into her cider. Caelum's hackles raised. Maëlys's fingers twitched like she wanted to hex someone with parsley. And Thorn, who had entered silently, now human and fully dressed, thank everything, leaned against the wall and whispered to Aveline. This is fun. This is a disaster. Same thing. Eventually they all sat again somehow and dinner continued. Rowan toasted to the union of impossible species. Caelum glared. Maëlys hissed. Elias declared it the best entertainment since The Bachelor. And through it all, Aveline sat at the center, watching the worlds she once thought would never collide now fighting for elbow room at the dinner table. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was hers. And despite the chaos, she found herself smiling. Because somehow, impossibly, she was no longer caught between two worlds. She was building one of her own. Chapter 7 The Ball, at Hollow Shade. This is a bad idea, Aveline said. Again, as Maëlys yanked the corset strings with all the mercy of a disgruntled tailor from the underworld. I agree, Maëlys replied, but you insisted on attending, so we must make you presentable. Define presentable. Because I feel like a medieval breadstick in sparkly lingerie. You look radiant, Maëlys said flatly. Like bait. Expensive bait. Aveline scowled in the mirror. The dress was beautiful moon silver and storm blue, embroidered with threads that shimmered like starlight when she moved. A high collar framed her face, and the skirts whirled like mist around her legs. It was elegant, dramatic, and vaguely threatening, just like the veiled kin themselves. I thought this was a diplomatic event, she said. It is, which means politics, which means masks, which means knives hidden in garters. You gave me a dagger. You're welcome. Caelum entered then, dressed in a tailored midnight suit that hugged his shoulders like it had been summoned from the night sky itself. A dark silver cravat knotted at his throat, and a tiny sigil of the moon strain gleamed at his lapel, a crescent enclosed in a wolf's eye. He stopped when he saw her, stared. Aveline squirmed. Too much. No, he breathed. Not enough. She flushed. Smooth. I'm allowed one compliment before being judged by ancient vampire dragons or whatever's on the guest list. It's mostly Tha lassie dignitaries and Velari court members, Maëlys said. No dragons. This time. Comforting. Aveline muttered. Caelum stepped forward, offered his arm. Ready? No, she said, then took it anyway. But that never stopped me before. The Hollow Shade Hall was located in a pocket realm accessible only through mirrored gateways and specific magical frequencies. To Aveline, it felt like stepping through cold silken landing in a dream. The ballroom glittered with impossible architecture, spiraling arches of obsidian and glass, floating lanterns filled with stardust, and soft music played by instruments without players. Everything shimmered with veiled enchantment, and everyone stared. Moonstrain and wolf-crested formal wear, Velari in flowing silks and feline masks, Arians with feathered cloaks, Tha lassie nobles adorned in pearls and droplets of sea glass, that dripped down their shoulders like ocean tears, and her a human in borrowed courage and heels half a size too high. "Don't let them see you flinch," Caelum murmured. "I'm wearing a blade in my thigh," she whispered back. "I'll flinch if it stabs me." Maelys, already blending into the crowd with regal grace, gave her a brief nod of approval. It was the closest thing to a compliment she'd ever receive. And then the crowd parted, and he entered, Rowan Morcant, Velari, and now, apparently royal pain in a brand new set of formal robes that billowed like shadowfear, embroidered with clawed constellations. His eyes were lined in gold, his expression unreadable. He walked toward Aveline, straight, silent, stalking like the predator he was. "Lovely evening," he said, bowing slightly. "Let me guess," she said. "You're here for diplomacy." "I'm here for you." Caelum stiffened. Aveline sighed. "Of course you are." The ballroom went quiet, not completely, but in the way that meant people were pretending not to listen while absolutely listening. A Velari approaching a moon-strain's human consort. That was prime drama, and the veiled kin loved their drama laced with political undertones. Caelum's hand tight and around Aveline's waist. "Rowan," he said coldly, "you're interrupting." Rowan ignored him. "Dance with me." Aveline blinked. "You're kidding." "I never kid," Rowan replied, already offering a hand, especially not in diplomatic settings where optics matter and ancient treaties hinge on court performance. Caelum growled under his breath. "I'll be fine," Aveline said, gently touching his chest. "It's just a dance, not a duel." "Not yet," Caelum muttered. Aveline took Rowan's hand. It was warm, smooth, stronger than she expected. He led her onto the dance floor with a fluid elegance that had nothing to do with choreography and everything to do with predatory grace. "You clean up well," she admitted, trying to hide how aware she was of all the eyes on them. "I'm always clean," Rowan replied, "and I always perform." "Is this a performance? Aren't all first declarations?" "Declarations of what?" Rowan's gaze flicked to hers, unreadable. "You're braver than most Velari I know. You command attention without magic, loyalty without blood. Even Maelys respects you, and she doesn't respect anyone. She tolerates me. She would have killed you last month if you weren't worth Caelum's time." Aveline's throat went tight. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to know what you've stepped into." They whirled across the floor, Rowan moving like music made flesh. Aveline kept up mostly out of spite. "Are you warning me?" "I'm telling you the rules before you break them. I'm good at breaking things." "I noticed," he said softly, "especially hearts." The music slowed. He dipped her gently, unnecessarily dramatically, and whispered, "You don't have to choose him. I already did." He held her there a moment longer than necessary, then helped her upright and stepped away. The music shifted, and Caelum was there before she even had to look for him. One glance, and Rowan was gone, swallowed by silken shadow and the hush of political spectators. Caelum took her hands. "Are you all right?" "Define all right." "You're shaking." "I just danced with the cat king of sarcasm and cryptic warnings. Of course I'm shaking." Caelum smiled just a little. "I would have stepped in." "I know," she said, leaning into him, "but I needed to step up." They moved together, slower than before. "Not a performance, just a moment." "You were magnificent," he murmured. "So were you." "With the brooding, and the silent threats. Very alpha." He nuzzled his face against her hair, his voice a whisper. "You're my center now." "And you're mine," she said, pulling back just enough to meet his gaze. "So let's dance until the wolves and cats declare peace or kill each other trying." "I'd prefer the first," Caelum said. "I'll settle for a dramatic speech and minimal stabbing." They laughed, and danced, and under a ceiling made of enchanted starlight, they found something that felt like a promise, silent, strong, and fiercely, unapologetically theirs. Chapter 8 Blood Moon, Broken Trust. Aveline's feet hit the grass like drum beats. The moon was red tonight. Not gold, not silver. Read a warning bleeding across the sky. She ran faster, cloak whipping behind her, the blade Maelys had given her strapped to her thigh. Her lungs burned. Every branch she dodged whispered, "Too late, too late." She heard the roar before she saw him. Caelum. He wasn't just shifted, he was losing it. In the clearing, surrounded by fallen branches and shattered stones, he stood on all fours in full Wilfen form, muscles rippling, claws reading the ground. His fur bristled, black as ink and twice as wild, and his eyes were golden reed, flickering between instinct and sanity. And beside him, one of the Tha Lassie delegates lay in a heap, not dead, but bleeding. Aveline stopped at the edge of the grove, heart hammering. "Caelum," she called gently. "It's me." His ears flicked. His growl deepened. She didn't move closer. Not yet. I know you're still in there, she said. I know this isn't what you wanted. He turned toward her, chest heaving. His snarl faltered. Recognition flickered faint, but real. Then another figure emerged from the tree's thorn, limping, his shirt torn, one side of his face bruised. He snapped. Thorn rasped. The Tha lassie provoked him. Said humans were pets with perfume. Aveline clenched her fists. So he tried to kill a diplomat. No, Thorn growled. He tried to defend you. I barely got here in time to stop him from being killed first. Caelum let out a guttural, confused sound. I'm here, Aveline said, stepping into the clearing now, slow, deliberate. I'm not afraid. She was, but not of him, of losing him to this. Breathe, she said. Come back. Come home. He growled low, guttural, instinct trying to drag him deeper. His claws dug into the earth. You don't have to fight alone, she whispered. You never did. He lunged toward her. Thorn started forward, but Aveline lifted a hand. Let him. Caelum stumbled to a stop just inches from her. His breath hit her skin in hot, rapid bursts. She touched his muzzle. Still with me. He went, loudly, longingly, and then slowly the change began. Fur receded, limbs shortened, bones realigned. It was brutal to watch, painful, messy. When it was done, Caelum knelt on the forest floor, bare, trembling, face streaked with dirt and blood and something too human to name. I lost control, he whispered. You didn't, she said, pulling the cloak from her shoulders and wrapping it around him. You came back, but I could've. But you didn't. He shook, not from cold, from shame. Caelum, she said, kneeling with him, listen to me. You're not broken. You're not a monster. I could have killed. You didn't. Thorn leaned against a tree, groaning. She's not gonna let you mope your way out of this, brother. Aveline smiled faintly. He's right. Caelum looked at her then, and something shifted. Not the wolf, not the alpha, but the man. And for the first time since she'd met him, she saw him fully vulnerable, fully real, and still she stayed. Later, the forest was quiet again. The injured Tha lassie had been escorted back through the portal to receive healing waters. No diplomatic charges yet, thanks to Rowan's sudden appearance with a velvet-clad legal team and a scroll that literally screamed when unrolled. Caelum sat on a mossy rock at the edge of the grove, the tattered remnants of a shirt clinging to him. The cloak Aveline had given him now rested across his shoulders like a second skin. His hands were clean, but his expression was not. It was raw, wounded, shame-struck. Aveline stood nearby, arms crossed, watching him like you'd watch a lightning storm that might, at any moment, turn beautiful or deadly. I hurt someone, he murmured. That matters. I know, she said gently. I promised you I wouldn't lose control, and you didn't. Not really. He looked up, eyes hollow. That's not how it felt. She walked closer. You shifted mid-rage. You stopped yourself. You heard me. I almost didn't. But you did, she said, voice firmer now. And that's what matters. He dropped his gaze again. This is why the others don't believe in peace. Why Thorn was right. We're born to break things. Then break the pattern, she said. He blinked. You're not just instinct, Caelum, she whispered. Your choice. You're trying. And maybe that's more powerful than being perfect. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of feeling, of truth. He reached for her hand. She gave it. And for a long moment they said nothing. Let the bond speak instead. Aveline could feel him now, not just physically, but emotionally. His guilt curled like frost. His longing pressed against her chest. His fear of her judgment tasted bitter on her tongue, so she squeezed his fingers. I'm still here, she said. But for how long, he whispered. You saw what I can become. I also saw you come back from it. His throat worked like the words lodged there refused to fall. And then quietly, painfully he said, I love you. Her heart stopped, then sprinted. I love all of you, he added, even the parts that make you afraid of me. She touched his face, brushing a streak of dried blood from his cheek. Then let's face them together. All of them. Yours, mine. Even Mailer's, as if we have to. He laughed, choked and broken and soft. She kissed him. This time, the forest didn't tremble. This time they did, because love wasn't safety. Love was standing still when the world wanted you to run. Love was choosing to stay when it was easier to leave. And Aveline Hart, slightly bruised, a little bloody, and completely in love with the werewolf, stayed. Chapter 9, Building Bridges. The council chamber of the hollow shade accord felt colder than Aveline expected, not in temperature, but in presence, like walking into a room where peace was spoken of in theory, but never practiced. She stood at the center of a semicircular dais carved from veined obsidian, flanked by towering archways and 1,000 pairs of ancient, curious, judgmental eyes. To her left the moon-strained Caelum at her side, shoulders squared. Mael is standing like an ice sculpture with a pulse. Behind them Thorn grunted under his breath, arms folded and eyeing everyone like they might bite. To her right the Velari, led by a sleek and irritated Rowan Morcant, whose robe glowed faintly with old enchantments. He hadn't looked at her since she arrived, and in front of her a sea of the veiled kin. Arians with feathers folded like knives, a lassie draped in wet silk and scenting the air like sharks, a Velari ward priestess with gold piercings and a scowl to match. None of them smiled, none of them trusted her. She didn't blame them. Caelum whispered, "You don't have to speak." "I do," she said. "They need to hear it from me." Mael muttered something under her breath in ancient Telop-an-I. Probably a curse, maybe a prayer. Aveline stepped forward. "My name is Aveline Hart," she said, voice steady despite the knots in her stomach, "and I'm not here to lecture, or plead, or beg." A ripple of surprise ran through the room. Humans, after all, were supposed to beg. "I'm here because your people have nearly killed me, because mine have done worse to yours, and because, somehow, despite all of that, I fell in love with someone who doesn't belong to my world, but does belong in my heart." She paused. No interruptions, no laughter. "Yet I've seen what hatred does. I've watched good people turn into monsters out of fear, and I've watched monsters choose kindness over instinct." Her eyes flicked to Caelum. "He could have hurt me. He never did. Your politics said he was a threat. Your fear said he was doomed to fail. But he loved me anyway, and I loved him back." A hush fell thicker than silence. Even the Arians stopped shifting their wings. "I'm not asking for treaties or truce scrolls or magical contracts carved in bone. I'm asking for room, for humans and veiled kin to speak, to share space, to try." A pause. Then, softly, she added, "I'm not perfect, neither is he, but we're trying. Isn't that worth something?" A silence lingered. Then Rowan stood. "I vouch for her," he said. Heads turned. "She is irritating, impulsive, and incapable of resisting strayed oggs with emotional baggage." His lips twitched. "But she speaks the truth, and she walks into danger with less hesitation than most trained warriors I know." The Velari priestess grunted. "If you're finished flirting." "I never flirt," Rowan snapped. "I make observations with flair." Mael rolled her eyes, and then like something ancient breaking the Velari stood. "If the Velari vouch for her," she said, "and the moon-strain follow her, I say let her speak. Let them try." One by one, others nodded, some grudgingly, some with curiosity. Aveline exhaled, a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding for weeks. Caelum's hand slipped into hers, and for the first time, maybe ever, it felt like the bridge wasn't just being built, it was being crossed. Later, after the chamber had emptied and the accords had been shelved, not signed, not official, but not denied, Aveline sat beneath a hanging crystal tree in the hollow shade gardens, her legs folded beneath her, a parchment map spread across her lap. Across from her, Caelum crouched like a wolf about to hunt a sunrise. "This one," she said, pointing. "Is this the Thalasi capital?" "Yes, Amara. Entirely underwater, breathable with the right amulet." He smirked. "You'll look radiant in gills. I'm not sure my hair can survive that much salt." Caelum leaned over her shoulder, his breath warm. "We can start with the Aryan skybridge. You'll like the altitude. Less politics, more birds. I'm not much of a heights girl. You fell for a werewolf. That's pretty high-risk behavior." She nudged him with her elbow. "Touche." Thorn ambled by with a stack of paperwork under one arm and a plate of meat skewers in the other. "If we're going to do this veiled Kintor thing, I want a title." "You already have one," Aveline said. "Cynical puppy wrangler." "I hate it." "Too bad. It's embroidered on your jacket." Thorn kept walking. "I want a raise." "You don't get paid." "Exactly." Mael approached next, hands clasped behind her back, spine straight as ever. "You're genuinely going through with this?" Aveline nodded. "The tour. You'll be hunted. Probably. Tested. Definitely. Exhausted. I mean. Yes. I am dating Caelum." Caelum raised an eyebrow. "Unfair." "Untrue?" she challenged. He said nothing. Mael's looked between them, then sighed, not dramatically, not dismissively, but almost fondly. "Then I suppose I'm going with you." Aveline blinked. "Wait, seriously. Someone has to make sure your snacks don't offend foreign monarchs. You're volunteering to be my travel nanny, I'm preventing an international incident. Same thing. Aveline grinned. I'm honored. Maëlys rolled her eyes and walked away, muttering, do not make me a bridesmaid. I will hex the bouquet. Rowan appeared in her place, arms crossed, eyes distant. You didn't have to speak for me today, Aveline said gently. I know. You surprised me. I surprised myself, he admitted. But watching you up there, it made sense. You belong here, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. Even you. He hesitated, then gave her a slow, reluctant nod. Even me. Want to come with us? Rowan raised an elegant eyebrow. To dusty temples and winged parliaments. No thank you. I'll coordinate from the civilized world, but I'll send gifts. And protection. Thank you, she said. He looked at her for a long beat. Don't get yourself killed. I'll try. Rowan turned, already gone in the way only cats could be. Aveline stood, brushing off her skirt. Caelum took her hand. So, she said, a tour of the supernatural world, an Inspiracy's PR campaign, and diplomacy with people who may or may not want to eat us. He smiled. Romantic, isn't it? You really do know how to show a girl a good time. You know what's next, don't you? She looked at him. The way his gaze softened, the way his thumb brushed over hers, the way the air seemed to hush, like the world was holding its breath. I think I do, she said, and she was ready. Chapter 10 Wedding Bells and Wolfish Smiles. The ceremony took place in the grove where Caelum front of her where he nearly lost control, and where she'd stood firm. The place had been cleansed, circled with protective runes by the Velari, and strewn with flower petals charmed to glow in moonlight. The veil between worlds shimmered thin that day, trembling with the quiet magic of possibility. Aveline stood barefoot in silver-threaded lace, the hem of her gown embroidered with tiny crescent moons and wolf paw prints a detail Thorn had fake gagged over, but secretly approved. Her hair was braided with flecks of iron and starlight, a nod to the old legends. Her Agamael's wedding gift was strapped to her thigh under the gown. She'd never felt more powerful, or more herself. The guests had been an adventure. Tha lassie nobles bobbed in enchanted water pools, watching with pearl-bright eyes. Eons nested in the trees, feathered capes catching the wind. Leonari sat in stone thrones brought across dimensions. And yes, a few humans had come, including her parents, who'd only fainted once. Her mother now sat beside Maëlys, sipping wine and whispering something that made even the stoic Velari nearly snort. Her father had cried openly and declared Caelum a solid investment. It was the highest praise he offered anyone. Thorn had been roped into officiating when the Velari priest demanded a 10-day pre-binding trial and 3 spirit animal references. Too many rules, Aveline had said. Give me the snarl Y guy with a good voice. And he delivered. Now, standing before her, Caelum looked utterly still, not because he was nervous, but because he was reverent. Like he couldn't believe she was real. Like this moment had been carved from a dream he'd been afraid to speak aloud. He wore no crown, no armor, no sigil. Just a simple dark jacket over ceremonial leathers, and a chain around his wrist that matched hers twin pieces of moon-forged iron that would glow if either was in danger. You ready? She whispered. I was born for this moment, he replied, voice low and steady. Thorn cleared his throat, surprisingly emotional. All right, lovebirds. Let's keep this from getting too sappy or I'll shift, just to spare myself. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Thorn continued, expression half serious. Today we bind not just a wolf and a woman, but 2 worlds, 2 instincts, 2 hearts that shouldn't fit but somehow, impossibly do. Caelum reached for her hands. Aveline Hart, he said, you gave me a reason to hope again. You see me the man, the wolf, the mess. You chose me even when I wouldn't have chosen myself. I vow to love you as you are, and as you grow, with teeth and tenderness. Her throat tightened, but she didn't falter. Caelum Wolfe, she said, you wrecked my peace in the best way. You made me brave. You taught me that love isn't just softness, it's strength. It's standing with someone, even when the storm comes. I vow to walk beside you, to run beside you, to face every moon, every shadow with you. The chains around their wrists shimmered, the wind shifted, and somewhere between sky and soil, the veil sighed. 2 worlds no longer separate. Aveline kissed him. The guests howled. Literally, the priestess fainted. Maëlys clapped. Just once. Which from her was basically a standing ovation, and Aveline knew whatever came next, they would face it together. They made it 3 whole hours into the honeymoon before it went sideways. The destination was supposed to be a hidden forest glade in the realm of the verdant court, magical, quiet, full of glowing flowers and enchanted hot springs. It was gifted by the Arians and blessed by the Velari, with a charm placed on the boundaries that whispered, no politics allowed. It was perfect, right until the unicorns started screaming. Aveline bolted upright in their tent, which was less dented more silken love cave wovening tree. Caelum sat up beside her, immediately alert, half shifted before his feet, even touched the mossy floor. Did that unicorn just shout in Old Elvish? She whispered, grabbing her knife and wedding robe. I think it cursed someone's lineage, Caelum muttered. Thorn's voice rang out from outside incoming, a massive winged goat aflame and cackling soared through the clearing. It was followed by a band of tiny goblins on leaf-shaped gliders, each carrying pots labeled WRIITHONEY and DO, and OTOPONOTOP. Maelys appeared a second later, blade drawn, expression deadly. You picked a honeymoon site along the edge of the Fey Wilds? Are you out of your minds? We were promised peace. Aveline yelled, ducking as a glider crashed into a nearby boulder. That was your first mistake, Maelys snapped, slicing a goblin's honey jar mid-air with precise fury. The Fey Wild has never known peace, just entertaining diplomacy failures. Caelum tackled the flaming goat mid-charge. It's fine, we're handling it. The goat exploded into glitter. See, he said, completely serious. Aveline dissolved into laughter, wild and uncontrollable. Not because it was funny though it was funny, but because this was her life now. Chaos, magic, screaming unicorns, and a husband who could wrestle enchanted livestock. Look smug doing it. She turned toward the chaos with a grin, slung her dagger back into its sheath, and shouted, if this is what peace looks like, I can't wait to see what war brings. Rowan appeared beside her from a portal of swirling shadow and sarcasm. Please don't tempt fate. Too late, Thorn shouted as another goat tried to bite him. Later, once the gliders were gone, the unicorns pacified with enchanted root beer, and Maelys had hexed the honeymoon boundary with wards. She called actual compet, and Aveline and Caelum lay back beneath a tree, exhausted and slightly singed. Still glad you married me? She asked. He kissed her temple. Especially now. Even with goblins. Especially with goblins. They fell quiet, wrapped in warmth and moonlight, surrounded by a world that no longer felt divided. Aveline looked up at the sky, at the stars flickering through the leaves, and felt it again. That hum beneath her skin. That rightness, not because it was perfect, but because it was theirs. No veil, no fear, no pretending, just love, wild and strange and stronger than fate. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and subscribe for more beautiful tales. Tap the next thumbnail to continue your journey.